I'm sure my screen share is up, which it is. Cool. All right. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Brian. This is Melissa, depending on where she is in your screen. This is a session of Revit Radio where you guys ask questions and we attempt to answer them. If you do ask questions, please put them in the question and answer pod. Otherwise, just go ahead and heckle us in the chat pod or say anything else you wanted to say. And so I do see that Tom put in here, he's like, hey, wanted to start off with the great news on PyRevit. Yes, I don't know if you guys saw that announcement. If you use PyRevit, they did update their downloader yesterday, I believe it was. Maybe it was this morning, don't remember. But so that theoretically is out there. It should be working for Revit 25 if you have it. A lot of people have been asking me, what's about PyRevit? Is it ever going to come back up? I don't think a lot of people knew that Revit 25, they had to redo and they moved from .NET 4.0 to .NET 8.0. And that caused a wreak havoc for a lot of developers who have add-in tools. So I believe that's what the biggest issue has been on PyRevit. And I believe in one of the blog posts I read, they said they were also, during that process, trying to eliminate a lot of those bugs. So yes, PyRevit is out if you guys are on 25. It hasn't been that big a deal for most of my clients because very few of my clients are doing anything on 25. So so there is that. The other thing I want to talk about is we do have a couple conferences that have like said, hey, let's start talking about conferences. So there is two conferences coming up. I'm just going to go ahead and bring this down. You do have the BIM Invitational. I do believe a couple of those people are usually here who help run that. So got a couple BIM Invitational coming up. If you're interested in that, just go to biminvitational.com. And then there is also one that Phil Reed and Reed Thomas runs. Those are your Inkscape guys that most people know them as. And they actually run a little leadership and a roundtable. So I was on this one last year. It goes into the roundtable. You sit down and it's great. It's a great week to kill away from everything. It's sit back, it's relaxed, it's all short, it's all pretty laid back. Really good food. So there's a video here you can see, and it's kind of like all outdoorsy type stuff. So, and I'm not just saying it because I went to this one last year either, but yeah, wasn't able to go to BIM Invitational because last year was conflicts in my current list. So anything you wanted to talk about, Melissa? No.
Sadly, no.
I did want to talk about one thing, and only reason because I know Autodesk is going to be pushing this, I believe, when 26 comes out even more. But if you're currently using Revit 24 or Revit 25, Autodesk has introduced the exchange models, is what they're actually calling the data exchange models. So if you're using Revit 24 or 25 on the cloud, and they keep saying that there's going to be improvements to this with Revit 26 as well, when you get into there and start looking at it, there is what you can do inside of Revit and produce what's called a data exchange model. If you're in AC, you can do this. It works really well. You can still see this data exchange model just like any one of your Revit files. But basically what that's doing is parsing that data exchange model down into data, not native Revit content. You can select on it. You can still get the properties. You're going to see all of the properties are still going to start being there, etc. But it is a lot more dumbed down version of it. And the whole reason for this data exchange model is you'll be able to have other people start linking to this. Like theoretically, the Rhino, if you've got the Rhino add-in, Rhino can go in and start looking at certain data from the data exchange model, do what it needs to do and update it. The other thing it has that if you do have this data exchange model, there is then a Power BI add-in for Power BI as well. So you have to go, I believe, to the Autodesk store to get this, but you'll see I have a data exchange tool in my Collaborate tab. All this does is you point to a file, you say generate data exchange model, and it does generate that data exchange model up on the cloud, which I was just showing here, right? So I've done it for two separate buildings. I gave a description so people would understand online what the heck is this just Arch file and this Arch events file. These are your data exchange. But you can also then go download a Power BI add-in, and that Power BI will let you link directly into that. So if I go into my get data, one of the things you get from the data is it doesn't show up here, but if I say more, I can actually get data from, oh, I got to remember what this was. I did this a while ago. There is like an Autodesk access tool, and you can actually go get it from there. So I got to go to other, I believe. And then in the other, there's your Autodesk data connector for Power BI. So it does allow that. So this is getting directly connected to that. So I've used Power BI with Revit stuff in the past. It's usually we're exporting out to some sort of Excel data or whatever. this will actually live link from Autodesk, the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So that's what that's there. You can kind of see that with the little tip, the one I got, you've got the little Power BI viewer. I literally spent no time in this. I can click on the casework. It'll zoom me in and show me all the different types of casework, et cetera, we've got going on inside of there. So not like I'm going to get into this, not going to really get this, but I did want people to know that this stuff is there. Autodesk is trying to work on those the data exchange models as they keep talking about. And I know they're going to be pushing that even harder in 26 when that does come out to be able to start seeing some of the stuff and what's going on. So if this is something you guys are interested in, do go play with Power BI on the Autodesk data exchange models and add-ons, and you'll be able to quickly go through and set some of that up. So, and again, there's also a Rhino data exchange. If you're using Rhino a lot, there's something to hook up into the Autodesk data exchange as well. And it looks like Rick also put up there, speaking of Rhino, there is also a content catalog. So if any of you guys are using the content catalog, formerly known as, oh shoot, I just drew mine blank. Formerly known as, blah, blah, blah. I can see all the people's faces. Unify, thank you guys. Formerly known as Unify, they do actually have a Rhino add-in for that as well too. So if you are using that content catalog, still missing a lot what we had from Unify, but they are working to make improvements and get that going on it. So yeah, hopefully that'll be sitting in there. So I think I might have to show something else since we literally only see one question in there. So I don't know. I'll show up something I was playing with the other day, which failed miserably, by the way. I was able to get this to accomplish, but it failed miserably. I have a client and they have like all these different profiles to be able to do their curtain wall mullions architecturally. So they had one that was just a rectangle, one that had a reveal on the right, one that had a reveal on the left. So they literally kept loading in 3 or 4 different profiles. As we all know, my theory is, hey, could we have one profile that would do that? So you can kind of see if you start looking inside of here, obviously that's the pretty simple version. But if I came in here and said, cool, I wanted that reveal to be 0, I can make it reveal go 0 and it still works. I'm not getting the element is too small on screen. I'm not getting any of that. Because technically what I'm doing is I'm drawing 3 separate lines. I've got one really short line there. I've got the line here, and then I've got the overall big line here. I got that for the other side as well. So if I go into my visibility graphics to just look at this, and again, I don't know if this was a good idea. Well, at the end, I found out it was a bad idea. I don't know if it was a good idea beforehand or not. But when I started going here and doing this, it's getting into just a lot of, hey, when it's 0, I need to make this line come back over to here. But then I also need to make this line up as well, right? So I'm just technically shifting all of those lines over to see what I wanted to do. And again, I'm basically just doing that with formulas. So if I come out here and look, you'll see that right now, I'll cancel out of this, I have 2 reference planes on top of each other, right? I can come down here, I got 2 reference planes. One is going to be the, reveal reference plane. And then the other reference plane I have is going to be the one that's for the physical left side. Again, so if I come back here and I just say there's going to be a reveal distance here, I change that value, cool, that's what's going to be there. But then the same thing is happening over here. You'll notice right now there's two reference planes on top of each other there. And when I undo that, you can see them. So basically what I have is just a conditional statement saying, hey, when this comes over to 0, take these 2 reference planes and shift them a slight distance from each other. Otherwise, if it has a value, let's go ahead and put those on top of each other, right? So technically this line here isn't constrained to this reference plane. This line here, if I were to delete it, wasn't constrained. It's the endpoint of this line that's constrained and the endpoint of this line that's constrained. The other line I have just connects those 2 together. So you'll see inside of here, like I said, just a whole bunch of conditional statements that's basically saying, cool, if the reveal depth equals 0, make this 1/32 of an inch. So make the gap between here 1/32 of an inch, right? So if I come back up here and make that reveal 0, you'll see that I make this 1/32 of an inch, which is actually plus the reveal depth. So it's reveal depth plus that. So it's basically just giving me 1/32 of an inch, and then this one just shifts over. If I go change this to be reveal depth plus 1/8 or something like that, plus 1/8, then what you'll see is that line. Oh, I got to go make this a value again. Sorry. you'll see that that line is technically just at an angle. So all I'm doing is just making that line go straight, which I thought this was brilliant. And it's like, God, this is so cool. But the problem is in Revit, when I loaded this in, I saw a hard-coded face line at all of these. So I did this as my curtain wall mullion. I do believe I loaded this. I don't think I loaded this into my template. So I'm gonna go ahead and load this into my template and just show you. I'll go to a 3D view. You also can see that I'm buying time for more questions. We only have a couple of questions here. But if I come in here and grab this mullion, I'm going to go edit the type, and I'm going to go grab the mullion that says reveals, right? So we'll see what's going to happen. I might have totally broke it. I'll delete them all. Why can't you put them in there? It's not a corner one. Let's just go create a new mullion. Using it. I threw this into a client thing. I did not do it into my own yet. So this totally is not curtain wall mullions. Rectangle. Let me just duplicate this. Cool. R, so I know which one I'm working on. And if I say, cool, this one wants to be the snap cap, the reveal side one. All right, so now I've got an RRR. So if I were to come in here and just grab this one, unpin it, and switch it to be a new one that uses that profile, duplicate, cool. This back. I'll tell this to use. Oh, I already did that. Never mind. Wow, it's broken in my profile. Profile. I literally just used this yesterday. Yeah, I'm done with doors. Profiles. R. Maybe I should have undone all of this and reloaded in because I broke it so many times. Let me just come in here and undo everything. Load that into my project. Profile mole, rectangle, side 2. And close this view, go back to my 3D view. We'll grab that RRR. Did I tell it to actually use the right profile? And yeah,
It's a good thing this is such a straightforward process for
oh
all
God,
of
I know,
this.
right?
Super easy. There's only like one place to check.
Yeah, I love things like this in Revit where this family's nested into that family, which is nested into that family.
Yeah.
There we go. I have no idea what I did. So this is all fine and dandy. Like this is cool. I got the reveals like I wanted to for this client, particular client. But if I go back into that profile and I go down to that profile, I think I said use this one. If I change that value to be 0, it should theoretically work and not break on me. But you'll see that Revit sees all of those faces.
Yay.
So I had the one with a reveal on either side, and I just made it rectangular. And I brought it in, I added all of these lines all over the place. And I'm like, oh, so even though it's one flat surface, Revit's still giving me the hard-coded line between all of those surfaces. So unfortunately, my idea didn't work. But I did bring it up because if you did want to do that, I'm sure if I put that profile and I used it like on a handrail, it would probably show as a rectangle. I don't think on a lot of the other profiles where we would sweep that, I would see all of those different faces. The other thought it did give me too, though, is if you really wanted something like, hey, I want to bring a profile in and I wanted to have different materials on those, even if I had that as, oops, control Y not, this, I could then, have probably different materials on that profile if I really wanted to. Since they're different surfaces, it might give you another option. Not at all what I was going for, but, just the capability. So what I was trying to do on that is just let my client know that, look, you can have one profile, do multiple things. In this particular case, it failed miserably. So. All right, we'll have 2 questions. So you guys don't ask any more questions, we're just gonna have to sit here and watch me fumble on finding all the properties for all the mullions in the 12 locations they are. So what do we
Well,
got going on?
there was some chat about iRevit getting updated.
Yeah, I started with that.
That's true. Sorry. Still getting.
Michael asked, can you put them 128th of an inch apart? No, because then in Revit, I'd get something that was smaller than a 32nd of an inch and it would blow up. So I do have that at a 32nd of an inch, but still, and I could have had this one come over 32nd of an inch. It had 3 lines on the edge. Regardless, I think it just failed miserably because, it's got to be there. So a little frustrating. The other point on this too that don't know if you even cared in Revit 25, this is 24, so it's not going to work, but in Revit 25, you could actually have for your curtain wall mullion. So as long as your profile usage is set to mullion, you could have lines inside of lines. So if I would have drawn and wanted this to look like the extruded aluminum that it would be, you can do that in Revit 25 now. Can't do it in 24. So if that was something you wanted, I think John actually made it look like the maze from like The Shining or something and loaded that into a mullion. And he had like every mullion look like the Shining maze. But so just one of those things that it is possible. One thing I went for, but there you go. So no, Michael, I don't think making that 128th of an inch would work. Yes, you have three edges on top of each other, but Revit needs that profile line segment to be at least 1/32 of an inch. Rick's asking if I played with the new feature for the mullion profiles. No, I haven't. I don't know if I ever will. I don't think I need to add a 5,000 different faces on my project just to get that look. Way back when, if anybody used the out of the box old mullion profile or old mullions in one of the templates, the mullions that they created, they actually nested in a detail component to that profile. So the profile had the profile lines. I don't know, do they still have that profile, I wonder, in the out of the box content? Let's go to profiles and find out.
Probably.
That's
Do they ever
me.
get rid of anything in there?
Well, they did the doors when they did the doors a while ago. Let's say profiles, curtain wall mullion. Yeah. So like in these ones, if you actually open up theirs, they nested in the detail components. So this is a detail component nested in on top of just the profile lines. That nested detail component, if you look at it, will show through. It's not shared or anything. It's just a detail component that's loaded into it. That nested detail component would show through. Granted, I'm talking probably 10, 15 years ago, but I had a client who loved this. And so they did this. And then when they loaded it into their project, they noticed their project was like massively slower, right? Because we think about things like this in Revit that when we start getting into there, if I add a horizontal grid segment to this wall, then I don't end up with one mullion, I end up with two mullions here, right? This is not one continuous bottom mullion. Between every grid segment, there is a new mullion. So now that detail component is in not once, but one, two, three, four, five times at the top, five times at the bottom, and then however many vertical segments you have. The other thing about with the detail component, oh, it looks like somebody posted that, is you do have to be perpendicular to it. So if your profile was like rotated or you're doing a slanting wall, the detail component nesting kind of didn't work. So for me, yeah, I never did that because like I said, I had a client do it and I'm like, so you're literally putting that detail component in and we did a mullion calculation. They had like 9,000 mullions. So you're putting that detail component in 9,000 times. Where are we seeing it? And he showed me like the 10 views he saw it in. I'm like, take that detail component in and put it in the 10 damn views where you want to see it. Because you're not seeing it at an 1/8 inch scale floor plan. You're not seeing it at a freaking 1/4 inch scale floor plan. You're only seeing it when you get into like 3/4 of an inch where you're detailing, etc., things like that. So for me, I will have that same theory on the curtain wall mullions. I'm probably never going to get into that. Plus, in my mind, I'm not a fabricator. So for me, getting into that level of detail, the contractor is going to switch me out from Conair to somebody else to somebody else to somebody else anyway. I don't think I need to be that specific on a detail or a curtain wall mullion. I need to give you the gist of it, but I don't think I need to show you the exact extrusions of it. Maybe you want to, that's up to you guys, but I don't think I want that overhead in my building for the benefit that it doesn't, in my mind, really give us.
Yeah.
But yes, somebody said your detail component has to be parametric as well, so you can nest the width and the depth and everything. Absolutely, you'd have to do that as well. And the out of the box one is, if I go back and open that one again, the out of the box one, literally, it is. You change the sizes, it all updates. So this whole detail component is all 100%. If I come in here and be like, no, this mullion wanted to be, 2.5 by 10.5, it all updates. It's all there. If I even go change the properties, yeah, I don't even think they gave you a width property on this because they didn't want all these little things to try to do it. Depth-wise, that's easy. I don't think they wanted to attempt to figure out what all of this is. So yeah, gets a little bit crazy, gets a little in there. But again, my point is now you're seeing it on every floor plan, everything, and are you really gaining anything? Yes, I could turn it on and off by detail level, of course, medium and fine, but it's still there and it's still being used in the Revit workflow. So no, I haven't messed with the profiles for extrusions. Where I technically really would love that, I would actually love that for handrails. More often than not, I'm cutting through handrail and I want to show that that handrail is an HSS tube or something like that, or my stair channels, I want it to look correct. I would probably use it more there because I'm not doing it so many times rather than getting into all of the other things. Like for me, I have a metal profile in here. Where's my metal profile for? I don't remember which one it was. HSS, right? So kind of on a my Michael's question now. So this is my profile where somebody's like, no, I needed to see this extruded out as an HSS. I have a 32nd of an inch, maybe a 64th of an inch gap because there's not a line here that I use on handrails. So yeah, if you look up underneath the handrail, you see the seam and the metal. But this client does a lot of industrial handrails and they're like, no, I need to see the HSS as an HSS. So they have two little extra lines in here. It is what it is, but that's what I've had to do. So I would love to be able to see profiles within profile or double lines within profiles for other things than simply just mullion. So if I could come over here and be like, yes, my railings could have that, I would be super excited about that as well. But unfortunately, in 25, it is only mullions. Cool. So what questions do we have, Melissa?
Looks like we have a couple for doors. So we'll start with Rick. Rick says, how do you set the room calculation point in a door family to be the center of the closed door panel? Is that possible?
I personally do not use the room calculation points on doors. I've used them on other families. I do not use them on doors. And there's a reason why I don't use them on doors, because they truly pick up on the flip. So if you've never noticed it, in a family, you've got this value here called room calculation point. And when you turn that on for a door, it'll give you like a two room and a firm room. So it gives you a squiggle where you've got this squiggle on one side here. This is going to be the from room. And on this side, it's going to be the two room, right? So when you start looking at this, this is what you're going to see in, excuse me, inside of this. The reason why I don't use this is if you ever show the two room and from room on a schedule and you wanted to see that data, and you flip that data in a schedule, it will flip the swing of the door on you. And where I use an example on this is janitor's closets, right? Most of our doors are going to be swinging into the room, but not a janitor's closet. A janitor's closet, we swing that out into the corridor. So if you have a schedule that says, ooh, my from room or my two room is going to be the corridor into the janitor's closet, and you flip that in the schedule, if you have the room calculation point turned on, it will flip the swing of your door or the hand of your door for you. So for me, that is not negotiable at all. I do not do that. I do not use this room calculation point. Somebody asked, can you get it to the center of the door when it's closed? I think technically it has to be on the outside side of the host. Because if you try doing it when the door was closed, that's technically going to be within your wall, and Revit's not going to see that as a calculation or a room that you can get into. So yeah, I don't know if you'd be able to do that because now technically you're within your host. So I could be incorrect in that because, like I said, I don't use it, but I don't know who asked that. Rick, if you've seen anything other, then you absolutely could do that. But I don't know because again, on this one, if it was when the door was closed, then that's the door is closed within the wall, and Revit's going to see that wall host as the object. I think that value would just be blank. It could be incorrect though. And
Uh,
Caitlin, what does Caitlin say there?
we have a from room override that is used to auto number doors. I also have a formula in our schedule that uses that to put the value based on that. Ooh, so a bunch of add-ons. It looks like Rick has a follow-up trying to
Oh,
get
so
my
I get it,
room.
Caitlin. So in a schedule, You're not actually using the room, you're using the door number that says, hey, this is the room it's coming to. Got it. Yeah. So again, that's a schedule that's going through, but you're obviously probably not using the from room to room or the room calculation point it's called. No, I've absolutely used this. I recently just had a client, they created a trash enclosure that's nested into the wall, but it kept scheduling that as the room they were, as a room it was, not the corridor or whatever it was. So sure, we just toggled on the room calculation point, drug that in front of it, and went through and set it up that way. And that way they were able to be like, cool, it's always going to be on the front side of this trash enclosure, whatever thing they're doing. So yes, it works great in scenarios like that. Um, the other thing that I don't know if a lot of people know, and I got to remember where I have this family, is technically Revit actually looks, no, it's not this one. I don't think it's this one. No, it is this one. So Revit technically looks for the room calculator. What if you don't have the room calculation point turned on, and Revit's looking at what room is this element put into? Revit is looking at the insertion point. So what's great about that is if you have a face-based family, it is always going to host on the face of the object. So in this case, this is a face-based, but if you have like a wall-based, it's going to look at the wall as the host. But what you can do is move the insertion point that defines origin around. So for me, I have this face-based family. I put it on there. It's going to go on the face of the wall. But then I have instance-based values to move the insertion point for the left and the right and the back wherever I want. Because in this case, like for a signage, right, I might be looking at, hey, this is a core, the door's here and it's coming down like this, and the door's over here, right? Here's my door swing, and I want it to pick up on this room back here. Regardless if I did a room calculation point, I'd have to have that drag. That's a tight, you can't adjust that in the project environment. So I can move my little reference planes around in plan and get those where I want them to be. And the sign will then say, cool, my room is whatever room where this insertion point, well, in this case, it's here. Whatever room this insertion point is set to, it will use that. They're all drawings. So yes, I have a sign-based family where literally I can come in here and move the insertion point around. So I put it on the wall, I got instance-based properties, I drag this around, and now I can move that to where I want it to be. I'm not using the whole properties of room calculation point because that's static and we can't move it. Other reason why I don't often use that tool is it's like, but in this case, I want it back 4 feet. In this case, I want it back 2 feet. In this case, I want it on the other side. I can go through and do all of that with that scenario as well. Yeah. Yeah. I was waiting for someone to say that, Sarah. AutoCAD architecture had this room calculation point, but once you loaded the project, you could just drag it around. It gave you a little grip to drag it around wherever you wanted. It's like, oh my God, that was the theory when Autodesk gave us this, because there's everybody from AutoCAD architecture bitching about that, going, this is stupid. So they gave us this, but you could move it around as much as you want here, but damn it, I want this grip in the project environment. If Autodesk would give me that, I would use that tool more often. So it's very frustrating.
That's fair.
So Rick, I don't think so. Hopefully that would you get that. Oh no, he followed up. What's Rick's follow up on that?
Follow-up is trying to get the room to go into the door jamb and opening for finish floors. Is there
Oh,
another way?
um, there's no way to. Oh, you want the room to go into the jam? Yeah, no, there's not going to be, to my knowledge, a way to get the room to go in and calculate that extra square footage or whatever you're looking for, because doors are not a room-based object. So you're not going to be able to get the room to come into here to see what you're looking for. Um, what I have done, my tile wall is going through here. I don't know why, but let's just delete that wall real quick. I don't know what, but so for me and my doors to kind of help you for finished floors, my finished floor here, if you look at my doors, or if I go edit the sketch of my finished floor, it does go to the center line of that door. I just simply built into my door family a reference plane. And you'll see if I kind of grab the line here. I built a reference plane in there that I call it my floor material transition. So when I'm trying to sketch this up, I can align it to that reference plane that goes to the center of the door, right? So again, if I edit this door family and I go look at the door family here, and I go into my floor plan view, I literally just have a reference plane centered on the door. I labeled it, made it a weak reference, and it's called my floor material transition. There is literally just a dimension for leaf thickness half that goes from where the front of the leaf would go back here, and now I have that for setting it up. So it's the best solution I have for you, Rick, to have a place to snap your finished floors to, is to be able to go through and do that. I will say that in the project environment, Revolution Design does have in their managed floors, so you can actually create floors based off of the room. Um, when you do that, there is a setting for the finished floors of, and I got to remember where this is. I haven't looked
Oh,
lately.
it's the pictures at the bottom.
Oh, it's the pictures. So you can have it extend into the face of the frame, so it will pick up theoretically on what's going like this. So ignore the whole door, which is what Autodesk would do. Go to the face of the frame or try to go notch it into the center of the frame. It does go to center of frame, not center of where your leaf type is. So not exactly perfect, but definitely better off than what you would get just trying to do, floor by the room itself. So they do have this. If you are using the Revolution Design tools, they'll go through and do that. I have had a long time request from Autodesk that I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but if you select a reference plane, there is a tick box for reference planes to be what's called a wall closure. And the wall closure tick box, if I go change my values to have something, it's up here. I'll make these 2 inches. So this here has a tick box for wall closure, right? What this actually allows us to do is wall closure is there for any material within that wall that has a wrap built into it, will wrap around to a reference plane that has the wall closure ticked. I would love to have one that's called floor closure. So I could grab this one here, have a floor closure tick over here, and then my finished floor would go into the opening like that, right? So again, that wall closure, if I come back over here, and I think I got an inset door over here. No, it's not. We'll switch it to be an inset door. Sure, that'll work. Right, and then if I go change my inset here, so like, right, you can see that I've got this finished material here. If I go into this door, I can go into the door and say, cool, where is it? For the wall closure, do you want the pick up on what the host is telling it to do, or do you want it to come on the interior or the exterior? So if I were to come in here and say both, whatever, and I change that material return to be, I'm going to say 2 inches, not 2 feet, 2 inches and 2 inches here, and I say, okay, now when I go into this wall type and I say, cool, at the wraps here, I can allow this and this to wrap, then it'll wrap to that wall closure checkbox. So I can get those materials to wrap into that wall closure when I go in and set it up. So you do have that in your doors for your little wraps. I know those wraps are fake and they're not real, but if somebody does want to see it, you have that as well. So I just wish we had a floor closure checkbox. That would be great. Yeah, roadmap. So, but at the very least, build in a reference plane that's called floor transition. Your users can at least snap to where you want that floor transition to go to. That's all I got. I mean, it doesn't, I mean, I didn't align and lock mine to it. I guess I could have aligned and locked that finished floor to it, but see if I aligned it to my, see, and I always make sure I'm saying it because there's so many reference planes in everything now. Floor material transition, if I align and lock that, I don't know, I don't do the alignment and lock, finish that. If I flip, no, don't attach. If I flip my door, does the material go to? Yeah, so you could even do that. And if the door flips, woo, your material will go with it. So that's all I got for you. No way to actually get that to work inside of there.
Trying to figure out where that's going to come back and bite you in the ass.
The align and lock, yeah, I would never do that.
Yeah. Like, who is that going to just totally have pulling their hair out?
That's okay. One of my clients who does more industrial type work, they actually know that all of their buildings, there's a concrete curb, right? So they always said almost all of their walls are built up on a concrete curb. So there's usually a 6 inch tall concrete curb wall here. And they're like, but then the concrete gets flown over it. So whenever there's a door, we need to have the void go down 5 inches into the wall that comes up. So we've got to rebuild their doors to have a void built into it to also cut the wall below. So that one's going to be fun to go in and doing that too. So cool.
Good times.
Oh, so Rick saying BIM 42 as a finished floor tool does the same thing. One thing about the Revolution design tool as well is if your room changes or your walls change, right, this is going to be static. Like if I move my door, that's going to be static. That transition, I might, unless I aligned and locked it to the edge, I must have actually aligned it to the sides as well. But if you didn't do that, then it's not going to update. But the update floors basically says, cool, update the floor. It'll see that the rooms have changed. It'll go through and do it all because it is using the rooms, so all of these lines are static. I used pick walls for all of my lines. So if I move the wall, it's all going to be just fine. Oh, I didn't use pick lines. But again, if I use Revolution Design Tool here and there's room, then I could just say, cool, go update the floors and it would make that go in and match. That's hilarious. That's where it's going to bite me, Melissa. I am. Already figured it out for you.
Perfect. That's funny. All right. Oh, here's a graphic door and window schedule question. And you walk through your method to do graphic door and window schedules not using legends. Do you do this for wall types as well?
So the way my doors are built, I physically cannot do a legend component. Um, I found out when I created my doors a long time ago, not because I was using it, because I hate legend components, but if you have a family that has got the tick box for work plane based, and you load that into Revit, and you try to use it as a legend component, it does not understand what the hell is going on. So if I open up a legend, and I'm just going to come in here, and I'm going to go say, cool, let me go to annotate, let me do a legend component. And I'm going to go choose one of my doors. It'll be one of my L's. Pass the casework, since we've got this beautiful, you can actually do, I do a leaf type, right? So leaf type's coming in here and it's on a floor plan. I'm like, cool, I want to see the front elevation. Nope. If it is work plane based, the front and the back, it doesn't even give you left or right. You only get front and back. And then for whatever reason, it sees it incorrectly. I have found that PyRevit, which I don't have installed, does have a thing to say, no, let me force all the legend components to look at a particular view. It will fix that. But so the way my doors are built, even though the front and the back is correct, since it's ticked on work plane based, and I've tried this with other families that are the same way, it just freaks out and doesn't give you all the options. Right. So I can't even come in and be like, no, I want to change it after the fact. It is just not there. So I can't do that with those components. So for me, and I know there's different ways of doing this. Some of my clients do a design option, some of them do a work set, some of them do whatever. I have my stuff on a phase. So if you go in here, you're going to see that all of this stuff, if I select it, is on a phase called the legend phase. So I've literally created all of this stuff in my template on the legend phase. If I go say I want to go see show new, all of that stuff over here goes away, with the exception of that detail component, right? So if I say I'm on a legend phase, that's what happens here. So I've created a legend phase. I have other clients call it annotation. I've had clients do this as a design option, and they do it that way. I personally do it on a phase because A, I can have it in template, and B, then it doesn't necessarily see these walls for room bounding elements because it's on a phase after any phase I do. I also have that phase for me at the very end. So my legend phase is the last phase. I have other clients like, no, 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 I do it as the first phase. Doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. But then what I've got done is I literally have placed all of these crazy doors, not only for me to have a record of it, but more because that's how my legends are created. So if I come down here to my door legends, you're going to see I've got a floor plan for the frames. I've got a floor plan for the leaves. And then within sorry, it's an elevation in this case, a section for the leaves. And within that, I have all dependent views. So I did one overall view, then I did all of these dependent views for each leaf. The reason why I do that is if I go into one of those dependent views, then I have all of the text inside, all the dimensions inside of here, and this is a tag. So this is truly a tag. So if I were to go grab this, and I'm not grabbing this leaf type, you can see I'm grabbing the entire door, right? I can go to that door and be like, oh no, I shouldn't have that leaf type. I should have had this leaf type. That wasn't a leaf type. I'll go to CW2. I go to this leaf type, gonna have to remove a couple dimensions. Then you'll start to see, cool, now I've got this correct tag down here, right? So as I go through and do it, so again, in my overall building, I went through and placed a fake wall, and then I've got all of these different doors inside of here, and then I'm doing views to look at that. I also went in personally for me, and I did a frame legend because those are the same things. So this is my frame type 40. My frame type 40 is going to allow me to come in here and start saying, cool, I can now throw all of those dimensions on here. And not only do I have a frame legend for the elevation for what is frame 40, I have that same for a plan, because why not do it for a plan, right? And if I actually go look at the sheet where all of this is, and I open that sheet, I also have a frame schedule, which talks about here's all my frame types. Here's the hinge, the strike, the head thickness in case they happen to be different. Here's the depth of the wall, so the host depth. Here's my actual depth of the frame itself. And if I have a back bend on those, if the back bends happen to vary, so like in this one door, it's got a 2-inch back bend versus a 1/2 inch on the other side. So I've got all those frame types listed. And then my schedule says, see the back bend values. And I've got back bend values on this. So on my schedule, I put the door schedule with my frame types and my leaf types so you can see how many of all of those there are. And that's just what I go through and do. So it's all live data. It's all there. There's no legend component. And now I can see, cool, I've got all the properties of this here. So my contractor, my fabricator doesn't have to try to go to every floor plan to see what are the variances of all of this. This is all live data to my doors. So that's my theory. I know you guys do something similar at Parallax.
Yep. Our legends are before the project.
Yeah, you do a phase
Mhm.
before?
Yeah, we do a phase before, and there actually is a demo phase just so you can use it for live legends to show overrides and things as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all floating out on the legends level, pre-construction, I guess.
What is my door family based on since those are all instances? Frame type or just door?
Mhm.
Um, so for me, my doors, the types are sizes. And most of these are like just door single. The frame as well as the leaf in all of my doors are instance based. Same thing for all the materials. Those are all instance bases. And then even things for like the back bend. So like you can see on this door, there's a 2-inch back bend on this side, right? I'm actually just playing with this. I literally just added the back bend like last week because I had a client go, well, we always schedule that. I'm like, you're the only client I've ever gotten into that schedules what those are. So yes, I just switched. That was built into my door. I just had to make it shared parameters so I could schedule it. Those were all in there. But so all of that stuff is instance. What is type based for me is going to be the sizes or like the shim space or the frame sizes. So the size of the frame head and strike, those are all types. So if I have like a 3.0 by 7.0 that's inset and I got one going into like a CMU where I want a 4-inch head versus a 2-inch head, I would duplicate those as I go into those. So those are the types of scenarios I have. My single door also has a tick box for inset or not. So if I tick its inset in a single door case, then it ignores the wall width and it goes to the frame depth value, and that frame depth just starts going inside of there. So I didn't want to happen to have one door that does this and another door that looks at the other one. That's all one door. All of my door singles are one door single. I do then have the ones with the side light. So this is a door single with side lights. The 1 versus 2 side lights, those are frame types. So if I switch this one from frame 22 to frame, I think it's 12, then the one side light is going to go away. I got to remove all my dimensions that are dimensioning it. Yes, I know. And now I get to the single frame or the single side light. So for me, those are part of the frame types. Same thing for my like pocket doors. They're over here. So like my barn door can also be a pocket door. So again, there's just the tick box in the type properties for is this going to be inset? If I say inset, my barn door becomes a pocket door. But I do then have to go back and change the frame type. So I probably on this one should have made that be something different. And that would be like a frame 12, I think. Yeah, I shouldn't be doing this in my legend doors. No, not frame 12. Probably frame 40. Yeah. So then there's my frame 40 to show the pocket door. So, and then if it's more of a residential type door, we get over to the residential doors. These ones also then have trim types. So you'll see I've got trim types on the pull and the push side. And then my residential doors also have hardware in the pull and push. I just haven't implemented the hardware on the commercial doors yet. So
Blacker.
yeah, when Tom's saying the guys who actually schedule I actually know Tom for the finishes on the back bends on these doors. It's hilarious to me because I have most architects who don't schedule that, and I had so many architects like they have like a chair rail or something out here and it's proud of the door and like, oh shit, it's an RFI later. This client's like, no, whatever finishes we have, we've got to take that into consideration for every door, and that's why they started scheduling it. I always laugh because when I see like architects, most of them like I have the door head and jam detail, and they have one detail. I'm like, I was in a project where there was chair rail going on, a wainscot going up. I'm like, that one door should have 5 jam details. What is that jam detail at the base? How are you
True.
returning it? What is it at the panel? What is it at the chair rail? What is it at the fabric panel above? Right. So this door detail, this one door should have 5 different details. They did not do that, and their job suffered from it. So this one client is very in tune into the interiors. Go, no, we look at every single finish we put on the inside at every single door, and that's why we're looking at those back min values.
Nice.
So for all of this stuff for the legend phase, I even have all of my mounting heights because then they can be live to something. So all my mounting heights are actual families I've put in there. I think those are on my 7. No, those are on my code. So again, same thing here. I've got a mounting height overall. All of these are then dependent views, and it goes in and it has all the dimensions. And part of the reason why I do this is if you're like, cool, in this project, I'm not using this toilet paper dispenser, right? I can find that toilet paper dispenser in my families. So I come down into my families, those are specialty equipment. And I'm like, cool, I wanted to swap out this toilet paper to something else toilet paper. That's paper towel, but you get the point. If you do a reload, and you choose a new one, it will just update all of them in your project. So I don't go load a new one when something changes in a project. I do a reload from, and as long as that family has the is reference determined the same, so the one I swap it out with has the is reference called, is reference centerline elevation, this dimension will stay. As long as this one has the is reference dimension, the reference plane, the top, this dimension will stay. So as I swap all of these out, my dimensions stay, but I'm truly showing the elements I'm using in my project, not some dumb variation of it. So I do that for all of my mounting heights. They're all live things. And then I do it for like turning radiuses and things like that. I think this one even has like the handicap clearances, all of those sorts of things. So doors, windows. And then the last thing I have on there is I do a material legend. So these are little generic annotation families. These little generic annotation families are literally just a 1/4 inch thick, I think, 4 foot by 6 foot or something like that. And those are literally in there for my finishes. Because again, if I come down here to this finish, I model all of these elements, and then this is a tag tagging the material. So this is my material tag tagging this element. It's a little border that lines up with all of this stuff. So if you're like, cool, on my exterior material legend, I wanted to come in here and this needed to be, that's not the button I meant to click. This needed to be whatever material, acoustical ceiling tile in the exterior building. When I swap it, the tag picks up all the data. And then my finish schedule is truly finishing that and doing that as well. So my material legend has data to it. And then my actual schedule is truly scheduling all of those finishes. I don't know if I actually have this in here because all my clients do their finish schedules different. Let's see.
Right.
I have a working version of it. Then I'm pulling out, what is the description, the fabric, the model, all of this stuff. And all of that data you see back on the other one is what is going to be in the finish schedule too. So this is my legend accompanied by an actual physical finish schedule. And then again, dependent views for this. So I can have one that's just interior finishes, one that's just exterior finishes, and you put those on the appropriate sheets. So a little bit more than just doors, windows, things like that. An honest truth, my window library is lacking. I don't really have a great window library. I debated doing the same thing with like cabinets because all my cabinets are fairly detailed enough that with the exception of shelf holes, I don't have modeled in them. I could do detail components nested with the exception of that. they're all pretty much modeled fairly accurately on top of it as well. So I probably could do all my details through there too. So again, and that's just all over here to the left of my project in a phase that most people will never see. Because when they get to their projects, it's only seeing the phase they're looking at. So the only reason, Melissa, I don't do um, it before, and I know you could put the phase to, right? You create it and demo it on the same phase. If it's after, you don't ever see it as long as you're like on show new. The previous and stuff never comes into the play. So as long as it's a show previous, that's the only reason I did mine after is I kept having clients when I originally did it as the first phase. They're like, oh, but when I say show previous and blah blah blah, I'm seeing it. It's like, oh my God. But if it's after,
That's
they just
fair.
never see it. And now with actual phase filters that we can actually do, I believe I created one called phasing. I thought I had one called phasing legend, right? So all these components whose phase created is legend. Now I even go into all of those view templates and I have my filter in there for my phasing legend, which is probably in here. Yeah. And then I literally just have it all turned off. So not only is it being turned off because of my phase filters, I can turn that all off via view filter as well when I added that like 22 or 3 or whatever it was.
Nice. A nice belt and suspenders.
Yep. So that way nobody can really screw it up. Because even if they say my phase filter is none, they are not going to see that stuff because there's a view filter also turning it off.
I was just looking at the
Yeah,
comments.
I was reading Caitlin's comment. Yeah, and that's also, Caitlin, why I put mine at the end as phase mapping. When consultants were getting it, it was confusing the crap out of consultants going, so what's this legend phase? And do I need to map that to my existing? And I was like, if it's after, nobody ever cared. It was really bizarre. Just moving my phase back made my consultants less confused. I don't know why, but it's like, no, match your existing to existing, match your new to new. We're done. Well, what's this other phase? What do I do? It's like, oh my God, it's before it. It's like, okay. So yeah, the big thing for me is anytime I get into phases, I always make sure legend is at the end and I make sure people insert phases before that. Yeah, most people use existing and new construction, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah, even if you rename it, you get people all confused. Hmm. Oh, let's see. Rick is saying, using your opening family, love it, by the way. Pause for you to thank him for thanking you. I have an opening that is running right up to a corner of two walls. So a wall is meeting the edge of the opening at 90 degrees. The wrap inside outside doesn't seem to work on that side. Something broken.
No, something's not broken. Literally, I don't have that loaded in here. Huh. I thought I had that opening loaded into my template. I do not. So if I grab like my generic model opening wall or whatever, since it's an opening, it is not going to, here we go. It is not going to push back into any of the other walls. If I come in here and I now have got that one, I'm like, cool, place it here, right? Let's just stretch it over to here. It will never go past this wall, right? So I cannot get that to go past because it's an opening family. Um, I do have, I think I actually have this one in here. Let's just go to up a folder. I've had the same thing with like Windows, and I think I saved this one from a client. Shoot, I'm not yet corner. So I had the same thing where I had a client like, cool, nope, this is not it. I had a 90-degree window where I created a 90-degree window, but the problem is getting this other window to cut the wall that returns. That was not possible. So all I did was check cuts with voids when loaded and added a void on that side. So after I placed the window, I would then go use the cut tool to cut into the other wall. Since an opening will only cut the host it's hosted to or elements joined that are parallel to it, that's what I had to do. So yeah, you're never going to get this to happen. You'd have to put another opening over here or do what else you needed to do there. Oh, and here you guys can see my wall returns on that opening family, which did the same thing. You want it on the edge of it. So you're saying you wanted this opening here, this? Confused. Oh yeah, by the way, the one thing I will say with that wall closure, you did kind of see that sometimes it'll freak out. Like if I do the wall closure here, that's cool, but the second I take it past this wall, it completely breaks and you don't even see the layers of this wall. Great way to screw with your friends. But yeah, the wall closure is kind of finicky. I've also found that in a family, I was like, cool, I can show it in the elevation too. So I went in and in an elevation, I went and did a wall closure parameter so I could try to bring the gypsum board coming down. So I like checked wall closure for like a vertical one too. Yeah, that completely blew it up. And when I did that, you never saw any of the material at any of them. So only use the wall closure on your, ones you see in plan. Don't ever use the ones like you see in a section. It just does not work. Run that wall that the opening is in past the perpendicular wall. So do this and then take this past it. But you want this wall to run through?
So not the opening, just the wall. So he wants it to just end right at the finish, I'm
Oh, have
assuming.
this wall
Right?
end here. Guess I'm confused. And then
I feel like,
do
yeah, I
this.
feel like that is what he wants.
Make my wall closure 0. And if you're seeing something like this could be an issue, but you might be able to go in on that one and do a miter wall cleanup. I don't use these that often. This wall join, go say, no, it's not even gonna let me miter it. Miter it before I put the opening in. All right, I'm getting tired of selecting the opening. Turn my damn dash line on. Oh, because I constrained it. Stupid. I hate that. I love the align with the new lock when I'm in families, but it screws me so bad when I switch over to projects. Um, I'm not saying that here anyway. Yes, I know. Unjoin, trim these back together.
So yeah, keep the wall going past, and then just do the opening right up to the
Keep the
finish.
wall going past and then just do the opening like this.
Yeah,
And then align
but
without a
yeah,
lock.
so, yeah.
And again, even
Let's
like my
just
little thing here with like my 1 inch, like oftentimes on one like this, I'm gonna want this to show the gypsum board running through. So usually I'll make one side 0 and then the other side something like a foot. So then it even looks like my gypsum board runs through in this case. Still see a line here, and it's not going to render that way in like Inkscape. Well, yeah, yours isn't working like this, Rick, because you created your own family. I'm hoping it's not the one I gave you. Try playing with that wall closure. If it's not working, make sure those wall closure values.
it's yours, Broken.
Yeah, and the wall closure checkboxes only work if you started with the door template. So even though this is a generic model, I did not start with the generic model wall hosted. I started with the door template, deleted everything out of there, and then switched it to a generic model. So thank you for pointing that out, Philip. You only get the wall closure tick boxes if it's the door or window family. Yeah, so I don't that should work, Rick. I do this one all the time. And it's mine. Damn it. Yeah, not sure if it should
Yeah.
work. I do this all the time and have been for a decade. See what I meant about that wall closure at an opening? You can start to like, oh, okay, that freaked it out. Let's switch that value to 1 and that value to 0, and then all of a sudden it stops freaking it out. So I know that wall closure is freaky when you start getting into certain things. Somebody flips it and all of a sudden you're like, why is my wall always in course mode? Yeah.
Uh, I feel seen with Philip's comment that he had to learn the hard way.
Yeah,
So
when I
we've all
realized
been
what that
there.
was with doors, and I realized you didn't get that everywhere else, I went back and recreated a crap ton of families. Cause I'm like, yeah, I want that wall closure on all my openings, and I want that wall closure on anything. So for me, my wall-based generic model template, that is my template. I literally took it from the door template and created my own generic model template. So now I have that for every wall-hosted generic model template. Because if you do, like I said, if I do control, if I go do new family, it's not a button I clicked. If I go file, new family, right? And we just say generic model wall-based. This is out of the box. Um, your reference planes do not get a tick box for wall. Oh, it does get a tick box now for wall closure. Ooh, did they change it? They might have changed it at some point in time. Oh, but what you don't get is the other option. That's what it was. You don't get the option like my doors. So when I go to my doors or my windows, um, I don't need you. I don't need you. I've got too much stuff open. Wait. So like my doors and windows, I can say edit type, and then I can actually get the wall closure value here. You only get that with doors and windows. So just FYI. So yeah, on my template, I started with a door. Even my window template, I took that one, saved it as window, took that one, saved it as generic model wall based. Cool. So what else? What else we got?
All right. Let's see. Getting first floor to read 100 feet relative to the project base point, whether an antiquated standard or not. I've seen some that leave the project base point at the internal origin and then locate or move first floor up 100 feet. Others leave first floor running through the internal origin and move the project base point down 100 feet. There may be other methods, but these two seem most common. How would you do it?
Yeah, so for me, my level 100, it truly is at 100. My project base point is still at 0. So when I go into a section and look, my project base point, obviously at the beginning of a project, my survey point, it's all there. I want this internal origin all to be on top of each other when I start. I'll move the levels up and down. I don't agree with the, hey, let's go move this up 100, change that elevation to be 100 on that project base point, and do it that way. Because you can see I did that and it moved and now I'm at 0, but I don't like that to be there. And I know there's some different scenarios on it. Part of the reason I don't like it to do that is I like it to be on the internal origin, right? If I go redo that again, right? My internal origin is down here. I think the project baseline point should be at the internal origin. Um, I know when we start working with like taking things into Rhino, we start taking things into other programs, it doesn't give a shit what your project base point is. It looks off this internal origin. So in my mind, that project base point should always be at the origin because as we communicate to Rhino, to RISA, to RAM, to any other program out there, it doesn't care about your project base point. Don't care. It cares about your internal origin. So I want those two to line up and understand what it's there. So my level 1 just says level 100. I then do have different civil elevations, right? So I had this inside of here. So if my survey point had, been moved or whatever, then this is going to pick up on what that is. So I do have my civil elevations as that's broken. That should be decimal feet, not fractional feet. But I do have my civil elevation working inside of here, which goes off of the survey point and then my project base point. So this is going to be reading 100 or that. So that's how I set it up. I know I've seen people do it both ways. I just understand that every time I'm communicating with somebody else, it looks at the internal origin, and that's what I like to see.
And
So hopefully, Jeremy, that answers your question.
you answered it without the dreaded shared coordinates word. All right. Well, looks like we've got one more, and it is on graphic scales. So, do you have recommendations on making graphic scale families? Do you have nested families for scales, or just have inputs for the numbers and distances?
Um, yes, I have both. I do know when the Revit 25 new sample project came out, sorry, Revit 24 sample project came out, there is a graphic scale inside of there. I personally disagree with a little bit. Paul Aubin gave that one. Mine is slightly different. So my graphic scale, which I can't imagine is actually loaded in here because I hate the graphic scale, it actually is. So my graphic scale inside of here, when I start looking at this and I look at the type properties, yes, I have one for all the different sizes, but mine is flexible enough that when you go in there and you look at the type properties, it lets you do whatever you needed to do there. So I have base value, first value, second, third, fourth, and fifth value, right? So I have all of the different values. And what you put inside of here is what is going to be displayed. Sure, I broke something. But is what is going to be displayed, and that's actually what's going to scale everything. So this truly is bringing this in and starting to show me of what those numbers are. So that way, when I'm like, I need a 16th or a 3/32, I can go through and set that up. How I'm doing this also is I have a scale factor. So as you change your thing from 1/4 inch to 8 inch to whatever, you need to know what the scale factor is. I said this to somebody recently, and they're like, I don't know what you mean. What's a scale factor? For all of us old AutoCAD users, you had to know what the scale factor was. You're like, man, I need my text to print at 3/32, but I'm in this scale. You had to take what that scale factor was and make your text accordingly to the right height. If you don't know, you don't need to know that. All of us old CAD users had a little cheat sheet taped to
I
our
totally
monitors
still have that.
that Melissa's like, I still have that. That said, hey, if you've got this scale, this is the scale factor, and here's what your text needs to be. But most people don't know. Revit tells you what the damn scale factor is. You don't need to know. So if you're like, cool, I'm doing a 1/16 inch scale, you don't flipping got to know it's 196. If I'm doing a 1 to 400 scale, what is that scale factor? Cool, it's 720. So I'm not even going to go into what you need to know what the scale factor is. Revit flipping tells you. So my family basically does, yeah, I just changed my scale to 1 to 60.
Ooh.
My family will basically do that same thing. So you get at the type, you're going to tell it what values you want here, and then it's going to display those values, change the length based off of that scale. But you'll notice that I'm not seeing like 2 feet 0 inches, 4 feet 0 inches. Some of my clients don't even like to see the feet, so we can get rid of that. But also what's cool is like right now, you'll see that like the fourth visible is gone because if you make one of these values 0, it automatically turns it off. So if I get rid of that one and say apply, then that one just disappears, right? Also, if you didn't want the first value, you have a lot of clients who don't like to see a 0, I can turn that off too. Cool. So how this is made is it's made with the nested families only because the only way to control where a text location is, you can't do that off of a label. You nest in a family. So I've got a family called sim length TC for top center. I nest that in. And this is actually one looking at a length value. So if I edit this label, this is literally just a label inside of here, but it's not a text label. This is literally a length value. So it's a parameter that's just a length value that's a sample. I then nest that into here, and I have to align and lock that to all of my reference planes, right? So you'll see inside of here that I've got a reference plane. This is called first distance, and it comes in here and it aligns and locks this there. Second distance, third distance, fourth distance, blah, 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 right? So then how do I know how long graphically to do this? This is the whole reason for the scale factor. So that first distance is the first value times the scale factor. Second value times scale factor, third value, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The only ones that are different is the fourth and fifth, and that's because if it's 0, I make it 1/32 of an inch long, right? So that's basically what this is doing, and that's why I needed a scale factor. But the nice part about this is you can do any scale you want because it's flexible enough for you to type in the value you want to see, and then it's also flexible enough for if you type in 0, it turns those things off for you. You just have to know what the scale factor is. So it's literally what my family is. I will gladly send this to you if you email me. I don't care. Anybody can have this. I believe if you open up the sample structural project, it might even be in there too. The shaded part is just a filled region. Yeah, I didn't have to go into nesting this as like a family. It's literally just a filled region that is aligned and locked to all the different reference lines or planes. I forget what I used here. God, this is a really old family because my units still have feet in there. Like this must be like this is usually just fractional inches, so I don't get the zeros in there. Man, this is really old family. I probably created this like 20 years ago.
Oh.
So just filled regions, all associated to the reference lines, et cetera. And again, these here. Oh, and then the only other thing on that too is in that family, I believe I have a units formatting on here. So if you grab a length value, I believe I said, no, it's still, yeah, to the nearest foot. So for some reason, somebody typed in 1.5 feet, it's only going to display 1. So it doesn't allow you to put in stupid, I mean, you could put in stupid things for the scaling, but it's not going to actually display that because I have it rounding to the nearest foot. And then if you also didn't want to see the foot mark, you edit, oops, not this, you edit this, and in that formatting, you can come down here and say, cool, get rid of the units. Oh, I can't get rid of the units format. I thought I could. Maybe not. Maybe I lied. Maybe you can't get rid of the foot mark. I thought I had done it in one of them, but so that's it. Nested family for this, mostly just filled regions. But the key thing for me is obviously formulas and then the scale factor. No, Rick said, and your view will tell you what the scale factor is. Sorry, just saw Rick's comment. So that's it for me. And literally, I have this one, and one of my clients were like, that's cool. I need a 1 to 400 or whatever the heck it was. I'm like, great. Go change your view to be whatever scale that was. I have no idea what that scale factor is. Cancel. So now you know the scale factor is 4800. So then when you go to create this, you can go in, edit type, duplicate this, give me a 1 to 400, and then change my scale factor. What the hell did I say it was? 42,000, 4,200? I don't remember what it was. And then it will change. Yeah, it's probably going to blow up on me, but it will change all those values accordingly. I've never went to a 1 to 400 scale, but if you're using a scale at 1 to 400 scale, you got problems. I know. Personally, as a person who started off, I never ever looked at a scale factor, and I started off way back and then in construction. I would always go to a commercial door, throw my scale on it because a commercial door is 3 feet. I'm not going to rely on somebody to put a scale factor down. That's a 3 foot door. That's my scale factor right there. That shows 3 feet on my scale. That's where I'm going. I've always personally thought scale factors were pointless. Those are meant to be placed on a view, not a sheet. You can put those wherever you want. My personal theory is I usually put almost everything in the view. They can go either or as long as you know what it is. But yes, I put them in a view because I don't believe anything should get placed on sheets because sheets are merely placeholders for views. I don't like to blur that line and have people start coming in and saying, well, but I needed to put this. Do I put this? I'm just going to put text on the sheet now. It's like, no, we have legends for that. I want to put revision clouds on the sheet. No, you do that in the views. So my theory is everything goes into it. Honest truth, usually for me, this gets nested either into like view titles for clients who use it or possibly even title blocks. I don't see too many clients actually manually putting these down on every single view or on the sheet for every single viewport. But that's up to you guys. I personally think they're completely pointless and stupid, especially since everybody looks at it in PDF format and we can scale factor things in PDFs. So I'm going to go calibrate my damn PDF to be that way. Somebody puts it on every detail. Oh my God, no, because I need to use a scale when I'm looking at a detail of waterproofing where everything's drawn oversized and spaced apart. Yeah, no, those people should be shot. And then your note says do
Yes,
not scale. Exactly.
that's what I was going to say. That's what they usually have. Don't scale these drawings, but here's a graphical scale.
But here's a graphical scale for you to not use when you're not
Mixed
scaling the
messages for
drawings.
sure.
Yeah, and I kind of understand it for larger scale plans like landscape plans, et cetera. People are trying to look at it and they want to know what's going on in there. I kind of get it for that too. But I don't know. I think on 1/8 inch scale floor plans or anything else, I mean, as an end user who I was an end user for 10 years, I never once looked at the damn scale factor somebody put on there. I would go to a door. It's 3 feet. Let me go. I'm done. But yeah, yeah, old school principle. It's a
Yep.
But look, that way when you're in Bluebeam and you're going to calibrate, you have something to calibrate off of, not an actual dimension string or anything. You can actually use that scale. I don't know. I think that a lot of people creating the standards are the people who haven't been around technology and they're still creating these standards off of pencil days. And it's like, guys, give it up. We stopped pencils 40 years ago. Yeah, North
Yeah.
arrow on every single view. I have clients who do that too, and it cracks me up. I actually have one client, they actually have a void family, and especially with topography now that they actually voided out of, so you should have a building pad, and they'd like do a building pad into their site itself. So anywhere they were, you would just see the building pad, and it would cut down into the topography. So they're like, we don't care. There's our north arrow. If you want to see it, just turn the damn building pads on, and you will actually see the north arrow. So I thought it was hilarious. That was their north arrow. It was just the damn building pad.
Okay.
But it still looks like our CAD standards. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a
everybody knows.
question for people in here because I had this discussion in civil chat today too. First off, how many people are actually starting to put color in their views? I'm just curious. I mean, yes, I'm 100% a color in the view person. Um, because, like I said, printing in color to printing in black and white, not that much cost difference like we used to have in pin plotter days. Understand that.
Mhm.
Second thing on that is most people are looking at this in PDF form. Like for me, absolutely all of my code plans are. Like if I
Yeah,
come
for
in here and I'm
sure.
like, yeah, cool, this is a smoke barrier or this is a fire barrier or whatever this needs to be, those get color coded differently. All my door clearances are red. I print them that way, right? That's just kind of what's going on. The other thing that I've started adding, and I haven't sold this to a single client yet. But like for me, I have a tag, and in my door, if I come tag this door, I have a specific door tag now that I am actually calling my QA door tag, which will get into all the additional data, right? This is a 20-minute door. Here's the actual opening. Here's the height of the door. Or actually the overall frame of the door. Because again, most people are using PDFs. You have infinite zoom on PDFs. I don't care if when you print that, that's not really legible, but everybody has infinite zoom. I got tired in my working views, like, shit, is that a 20-minute door? Let me grab that door. Let me scroll down to the properties. Yeah, that's a 20-minute door. Shoot, that's a 20-minute door. I can see it. I can look at all of my doors and start seeing what they are there. So for me, I've absolutely started even creating tags that have additional data that the contractor might use and putting those in my drawings. Because tell you what, as a contractor, it's much nicer to say, shit, that's a 20-minute door and seeing it right here rather than having to go flip to a door schedule. I'm looking for door 1,342. Next page to the next page. Oh, that's this door with this and this and this and this. I don't know. The data's all there. Why don't we start using it more? Yeah, see, everybody likes that. That's hilarious. Dan saying we have a contractor who's only using PDF. And right after that, Rick's like, our contractors only look at the paper printouts. And that's great. If they're only looking at the paper printouts, that's their prerogative. But on larger projects, guarantee they have PDFs or some sort of access to get it. And I'm not saying the data is not there. I do try to choose colors that print differently, and I have a
Mhm.
tag that will tell me this is a smoke barrier, fire barrier. But it's just so much nicer if I'm in the PDF form to not have to look, to not have to say, cool, let me go over to the legend. What does this hatch pattern mean? Okay, cool. Let me come back over here and look at the wall. Just do it all. I don't know. Kind of come talk to your bosses. But the partition tags taking up too much space. These are my partition tags for code plans, basically. I don't really care about all of this different data on non-code plans. I don't need to know
Mhm.
the STC, the smoke barrier, the fire barrier, all of that stuff here. So usually I have different tags. One tag that is going to be for like code plans, and other tags that are just here's your typical wall type. Here you go. Um, Yes, colorblind folks. I have a colorblind child, and so yeah, that and I actually worked with a coworker that way back when we had to take the Revit certification tests as Autodesk resellers. They'd always be like, "Tell me what the object in red is." I had to sit next to the coworker to tell him what the object and highlight the object in red because he could not tell the difference between black and red. So we literally had to sit there and proctor his test and tell him, "Dude, that's red. Dude, that's the red one. Dude, that's the red one." They were horrible for that. So I learned to vary on with a colorblind child and a colorblind coworker that, this is a horrible example, the pink into the black, because they're probably not going to be able to see that.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm also the fact, like you guys saw on my door schedule on my door sheet, that why not start putting more schedules on more sheets? Too many times people are in that old mindset of we'll only show the data in one location because
Yeah.
we don't want to have to track that data down. Well, if it's true data, you don't ever have to track it down, right? Well, there is extra work. I'm not gonna say there's no extra work. You don't have to track it down. You have to make sure people are then putting the tags in the elevation. They put those tags in the right location. They're not covering a card reader or something stupid. So there is work, but there's no extra work to verify that it's correct, right? I have the whole reason on that door sheet that I was talking about. The whole reason that that came about is I literally have one of my clients who he's like, I work closely with the contractors, and I needed to showing those door schedules, and he's like, well, it's Revit. all of the data is there in plan. Why don't I just put this in the plan? I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. That was like, I don't know, 15 years ago. So I started doing that. Then when Autodesk also gave us the capability in schedules to filter schedules per sheet, right? If I go into my filter, I can filter schedules by sheets. I will now do that because then I will put a door schedule on every damn floor plan. And guess what? All of the data is there. It might be a more simplified schedule, but why not put a door schedule or a room schedule on every plan if you have the space because the data is going to be there and it's one schedule. I'm not creating 500 different schedules. It's one schedule filtering it by sheet. So that was my theory. But all right, I just realized I went 20 minutes over as people are saying gotta run.
It
And
happens.
technically I had a meeting I was supposed to be at 20 minutes ago, but that's okay. So yeah, I don't know. Just things to think about when you're talking to these people who are like, you've got to use pin weights and you've got to set this up because we always did. Just start mentioning
Because
other
they
things.
definitely won't be able to build it.
Yeah, I also keep wondering why we have paper sizes. Like I did one of my clients did a project that was so large. They were using 36 by 48 sheets at 1/8 inch scale. They had 72 sector plans. It was the Miami Beach Convention Center. 72 sector plans. I would rather it had one giant plan that I could pan and zoom in than 72 different sector plans having to bounce all over the place. I mean, granted, I know we still got to print it for a lot of jurisdictions and a lot of places,
Crazy.
but it's kind of like, man, why do we even have sheet sizes anymore? Everybody get digital and we'll be done with it. Sheet sizes will be a thing in the past. But otherwise, I'm done. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for spending in another wasted hour. I mean, a great educational billable hour for coming to Revit Radio. Really appreciate it. I should have this one. I did record, so we should have this one posted. I think I hit record. I hope I hit record.
You did.
We should have this one posted. I did forget last month, but hopefully it'll be up there and you could share it with everybody. And hopefully I will see you guys all next week. Thanks, everyone.
Next week, though. What's
Or
happening
next
next
month.
week?